She lied about her age, until a cowboy told her love counts only the moment, not years. Every corner of her home reflected her personality: bright colors, shelves lined with books, and pictures of places she had traveled to over the years. On the surface, her life seemed perfect. She had a stable job she enjoyed, friends who genuinely cared for her, and hobbies that filled her free time. Yet beneath that seemingly confident exterior was a secret that she carried carefully, one that had quietly shaped many of her decisions. She lied about her age. The truth was simple yet complicated. She was no longer in her 20s, nor even in her early 30s. She had lived through experiences, heartbreaks, and lessons that had matured her in ways she knew would be hard for others to understand or accept at first glance. In her mind, admitting her real age felt like opening a door to judgment. People treated age like a measure of worth, a line drawn in the sand that separated those still young enough to be desirable from those who were considered too old. And so she chose to hide that part of herself. It began slowly, almost by accident. Years ago, when she first joined online dating, she had hesitated to put her real birth year on her profile. She remembered scrolling through countless profiles, comparing herself silently to younger women, wondering why men seemed so interested in someone who was technically a decade younger. Maybe if I just say I'm younger, they'll give me a chance, she had thought. It was a small lie, easily told, and it quickly became a habit. With each profile update and each date, the lie grew heavier, yet strangely comforting. She felt safer, more accepted, and strangely freer. As time went on, she perfected the lie. She learned to slip her younger age into conversations with ease, avoiding questions that might expose her. It became second nature to her, almost like a protective shield. She noticed how people's eyes would light up when they thought she was younger, how men treated her with a mix of excitement and respect, how she felt a fleeting sense of pride each time someone complimented her looks or vitality. Yet every compliment carried a shadow, a quiet guilt that gnawed at her during moments of solitude. She knew she was building connections on something untrue, and while it worked in her favor socially, it left a hollow feeling in her heart. Her friends often joked about her dating adventures, teasing her for the strange, sometimes absurd experiences she would bring home. They laughed when she recounted stories of men who turned out to be obsessed with youth, men who bragged about their younger girlfriends or casually mentioned age, as if it was a trivial fact of life. She laughed too, even though deep inside, she knew she was laughing at herself as much as at them. She knew that the real reason she kept lying about her age wasn't just about men, it was about herself. She feared being seen for exactly who she was, believing that somewhere, somehow, the real version of her might not be enough. Work provided her with a sense of accomplishment and stability. She worked in a small but reputable company that specialized in community projects. Her colleagues respected her, and she was known for her attention to detail and her friendly demeanor. Still, she noticed how conversations around age would subtly influence perceptions. Younger employees would sometimes whisper about promotions or opportunities, and while no one directly treated her differently, she felt the unspoken undercurrent. It made her careful, cautious, and slightly defensive, a part of her that never fully relaxed. Social events were another battleground of subtle tension. Whether it was a friend's wedding, a reunion, or even a casual party, she would measure every interaction, every smile, every word. She would carefully navigate conversations about her past, her experiences, and her achievements, often redirecting or deflecting questions that might hint at her true age. On some evenings, she found herself imagining what it would feel like to be completely honest, to introduce herself without a filter, to share her stories without fear. Yet every time the thought came, it was quickly replaced by fear, a fear of rejection, misunderstanding, or pity. Despite her careful life, there were moments of deep loneliness. She would come home after long days, sip her tea quietly by the window, and watch the world pass by. Children playing, couples holding hands, friends laughing together. It all seemed vibrant and full of life. She often wondered if she would ever find someone who could look past her age, past the surface, and see the person she truly was. She longed for connection that wasn't based on appearances or numbers, but on shared values, understanding, and genuine affection. She dreamed of evenings spent talking for hours, of laughter without pretense, of comfort that didn't require hiding anything. Her past relationships were a patchwork of lessons. Some were brief flings that fizzled quickly, often because the connection was shallow or based on superficial attraction. Others lasted longer, but even then, she felt the constant need to maintain her facade. There was one particular relationship that lingered in her memory. He had been charming, attentive, and seemingly perfect on the surface, yet the foundation was fragile. She remembered the tension, the small lies, the tiny omissions that grew into walls between them. When the truth eventually surfaced, it had created a rift too wide to mend. The heartbreak had left her cautious, determined never to repeat the same mistakes. She told herself that honesty would come eventually, but only when she felt safe, only when she was sure the other person truly cared for her beyond appearances. Despite the careful structure of her life, she had a streak of spontaneity. She loved small adventures, weekend hikes, trying new recipes, or attending local events. She found joy in the unexpected moments of life, the simple pleasures that made her heart light. These were the moments where she felt most alive, where the facade faded slightly and the real her peeked through. Yet even in these moments, there was always a whisper of fear. What if someone discovered the truth? What if the connection she longed for was only possible if she remained hidden behind her carefully crafted image? Her closest friends knew her well, but none knew the full truth. They knew she was careful about online dating. They knew she worried about first impressions, but the age lie remained a secret she carried alone. There was a peculiar comfort in this secrecy, a feeling of control in a world that often demanded she measure herself against others. Yet she also felt the weight of isolation. Secrets, she realized, built walls as much as shields, and sometimes the wall felt too heavy to bear. One evening, after another quiet night alone, she found herself reflecting on her life with a mixture of pride and sorrow. She had built a life that many would envy, full of independence, creativity, and resilience. Yet the lie she carried felt like a shadow, a small but persistent reminder that she had not fully embraced herself. She wondered if she would ever meet someone who valued the truth as much as the image she presented. Could anyone truly love her for who she was, without conditions, without expectations, without concern for a number? The thought made her heart ache, but it also sparked a quiet hope, a tiny ember that perhaps one day love might find her even in her honesty. As days turned into weeks, she continued her routine, balancing work, friendships, and her cautious dating life. She scrolled through dating apps with practiced ease, sending messages carefully crafted to avoid revealing too much. She attended social gatherings with a smile, laughed at jokes, and engaged in conversations with warmth. Yet all the while, there was an underlying tension, a quiet fear that at any moment the truth might slip, and the fragile balance of her life could shift. She often wondered what it would feel like to let go completely, to meet someone without barriers, without masks, without fear. She dreamed of a connection that could see her fully, her past, her experiences, her insecurities, and her joys, without judgment. She longed for a love that measured heartbeats, not birthdays, and shared moments, not milestones. Deep inside, she believed that such a love existed somewhere, waiting for the moment when both hearts were ready to meet, honest and unafraid. Little did she know, life had a way of surprising even the most cautious hearts. One day, at a place she least expected, she would meet someone who would challenge everything she believed about love, age, and connection. Someone who would see her for who she truly was. Someone who would remind her that love counts only the moments shared, not the years counted. Until that day arrived, she continued to live her life carefully, hiding her truth, carrying her secret, and dreaming of a love that felt real, deep, and timeless. Life had a way of moving quietly, almost predictably, until the unexpected arrived. She never thought her life would take a sudden turn during one of the town's annual events, something so ordinary that no one could imagine it would change the course of her heart. That day began like any other Saturday morning. She woke up early, brewed a strong cup of coffee, and organized her small apartment before heading out. The sun was warm, the sky a bright blue, and there was a soft excitement in the air as the town prepared for the local rodeo. It was an event that drew people from all around the area, families, visitors, and even a few travelers passing through. Though she had attended similar events before, this particular day felt different, though she couldn't put her finger on why. She dressed carefully, choosing an outfit that was casual yet polished. She liked the way the light fabric of her blouse moved, how her boots fit perfectly, and how comfortable yet stylish she felt. The truth was, she had an eye for detail, and even when she tried to be relaxed, she always appeared composed. She arrived at the rodeo grounds early, enjoying the peaceful moments before the crowd arrived. The smell of fresh hay, the faint scent of leather, and the distant sound of horses' hooves created a sense of calm excitement that she found oddly comforting. It was the kind of environment where she could observe, think, and sometimes lose herself in the simplicity of life around her. As the event began, she wandered through the stands, watching the cowboys prepare their horses, the young riders practicing their lasso skills, and the families settling into their seats. She smiled at children waving excitedly, couples holding hands, and the occasional friendly greeting from neighbors she recognized. It was a lively yet unpretentious atmosphere, the kind that reminded her how beautiful simple joys could be. She felt at ease here, as if the chaos of the outside world had paused just for a few hours, giving her a chance to breathe and enjoy life without pretense. It was then that she first noticed him. He was standing near the edge of the arena, adjusting the saddle on his horse, a figure of quiet strength and calm. He had the build of someone who worked with his hands, someone who knew the land, the animals, and life itself intimately. There was a rugged charm to him, the kind that didn't need polish or pretense to be noticed. His eyes, a deep shade of brown, held a warmth and wisdom that immediately caught her attention. He wasn't flashy, he didn't carry an air of arrogance, yet there was something magnetic about his presence. She found herself watching him, curious and intrigued, feeling a spark of interest she hadn't felt in a long time. The moment of introduction was unplanned and natural. A young boy, struggling to hold onto a runaway hat, bumped into her, causing her to stumble slightly. Before she could steady herself, a strong hand reached out, steadying her effortlessly. "Careful there," he said, his voice calm, reassuring, and filled with a gentle humor. She looked up into his eyes, her heart skipping a beat. There was no judgment, no condescension, just a quiet steadiness that immediately put her at ease. She managed a small laugh and thanked him, feeling a warmth spread through her chest that she hadn't expected. They began talking casually, first about the boy, then about the event itself. He had a soft laugh that was both comforting and genuine. He spoke with simplicity and honesty, sharing small stories about life on the ranch, the challenges of working with horses, and the joys of being close to nature. She listened, captivated by his sincerity, the kind of unfiltered honesty that made her feel like she could let her guard down. For a brief moment, she forgot the careful masks she always wore, the lies she told, and the constant calculations she made in her daily life. Here was someone who seemed to see the world plainly and beautifully, and it intrigued her deeply. The day moved forward with a mixture of activity and quiet moments. She watched the events, occasionally exchanging comments with him, laughing at shared observations, and feeling an unexpected comfort in his company. Unlike the men she had dated before, there was no need to impress, no pressure to be someone she was. His presence was steady, unassuming, and somehow liberating. She found herself smiling more, relaxing more, and even enjoying the occasional moment of silence between them. It was the kind of connection that didn't need constant conversation to feel significant. It was present in the way he listened, the way he observed, and the way he simply existed nearby. Over the course of the day, they discovered shared interests that went beyond the surface. They both enjoyed the quiet beauty of nature, the simplicity of small-town life, and the joy of working with their hands in meaningful ways. He spoke about the value of patience, the importance of understanding the world at its own pace, and the satisfaction that came from living authentically. She found herself drawn to these values, realizing how much they resonated with her own quietly held beliefs. It was a stark contrast to the fast-paced, appearance-focused world she often navigated, and it was refreshing in ways she hadn't anticipated. As they walked through the grounds together, they shared little anecdotes about their lives. He spoke of long mornings spent riding horses before the sun rose, of the simple satisfaction of a job well done, and of quiet evenings spent under a wide-open sky. She shared stories of her work, her travels, and the small joys that made her heart light. Though she still carried her secret, she felt a growing trust in his presence, a sense that perhaps she could reveal her true self eventually. The more she talked, the more she realized how rare it was to meet someone who listened without judgment, who engaged with genuine curiosity, and who didn't need a mask to appreciate life. By the afternoon, the crowd had thickened, the sun hanging high in the sky. They found a quieter spot near the edge of the arena, away from the noise, where they could talk more freely. It was there that she felt a strange, unexpected comfort, a feeling that this day, this encounter, might be different from all the others. She realized she hadn't felt nervous or self-conscious around him, not in the way she usually did. The conversation flowed naturally, filled with humor, small confessions, and genuine interest. She felt seen in a way that was unfamiliar yet deeply reassuring. As the rodeo came to a close, he offered to walk her back to her car. They moved slowly through the fading light, talking about everything and nothing at once. He spoke about the importance of enjoying each moment, about finding joy in small experiences, and about the truth that life was too short to live in fear of judgment. She found herself nodding, absorbing his words, feeling a quiet shift in her heart. For the first time in years, the idea of honesty didn't seem threatening. It seemed liberating. She wasn't sure if it was his words, his presence, or simply the way he made her feel, but she sensed that something had changed within her. Before parting ways, he asked if they could meet again, perhaps for coffee or a walk in the coming days. She felt a surge of excitement tempered by her usual caution. Yet something in his demeanor, the gentle steadiness, the lack of pressure, the authenticity, made her want to say yes. She agreed, feeling a flutter of anticipation she hadn't experienced in a long time. As she watched him ride away on his horse, she realized that the day had left a mark on her heart, a quiet but undeniable imprint of curiosity, hope, and a budding connection that felt real. That evening, back in her apartment, she reflected on the day with a mixture of surprise and cautious excitement. She thought about the way he had listened, the way he had shared himself, and the way she had felt seen without pretense. For the first time in a long while, she considered the possibility of someone appreciating her for who she truly was, beyond any lies or carefully constructed images. The thought filled her with both hope and fear. Could she truly allow herself to be vulnerable again? Could she reveal her age, her insecurities, and the layers of her life without fear of rejection? Sleep came slowly that night, her mind replaying moments from the day. She remembered his laugh, the warmth in his eyes, the way he had made her feel calm and understood. She thought about the honesty he had shown, and the contrast it drew against the carefully maintained facade she had carried for years. For the first time, she questioned the necessity of her lies. Perhaps age, she realized, was less important than she had imagined. Perhaps connection, authenticity, and shared moments mattered more than the number of years one had lived. As she drifted to sleep, a quiet sense of anticipation settled over her. Life, she thought, had a way of surprising even the most cautious hearts. The day had begun like any other, yet it ended with a spark she couldn't ignore, a spark of hope, of curiosity, and of something real. She didn't yet know where it would lead, but she felt ready, for the first time in a long time, to explore the possibilities without fear. The encounter had opened a door, and though the path ahead was uncertain, it was filled with promise, laughter, and the subtle magic of moments shared with someone who truly saw her. The days that followed their first meeting were filled with a mixture of excitement and quiet. Anxiety. She could not stop thinking about him, replaying their conversation, his laugh, the warmth in his eyes, and the effortless way he had made her feel at ease. For the first time in years, she felt a spark that was not rooted in superficial attraction, but in something deeper, something real and unshakable. Yet beneath the thrill, a knot of fear tightened in her chest. She had carried her secret about her age for so long that even the thought of being honest seemed terrifying. What if he discovered the truth? Would it change the way he looked at her? Would it undo the fragile connection they had begun to form? She tried to focus on the moments they shared rather than her fears, but it was easier said than done. Every text, every message, and every invitation to meet brought a flicker of hope, followed quickly by a shadow of worry. She found herself carefully calculating how much to reveal, how much to conceal, and how to maintain the balance between authenticity and protection. In her mind, the lie had always been a shield, a way to protect herself from judgment, but now it felt like a cage that kept her from fully enjoying something beautiful. When they met again, it was for a quiet coffee at a small cafe near the town square. She arrived early, trying to steady her nerves, choosing her words carefully even before she saw him. And then he arrived, walking in with that familiar calm presence, a smile that made her heart flutter, and a casual confidence that immediately put her at ease. The moment he greeted her, all her fears momentarily melted away, replaced by the joy of being in his company. There was something comforting about his smile, something that suggested patience, understanding, and genuine interest. They talked for hours that morning about everything and nothing. He asked her about her work, her interests, her dreams, and she found herself opening up more than she had expected. She shared little anecdotes about her life, her quiet adventures, and her love for simple moments. And yet, as much as she talked, there was a persistent weight at the back of her mind, the lie she had told about her age. Every laugh, every shared glance, every touch of the hand across the table brought both joy and fear. She was growing closer to someone extraordinary, and the thought that this connection might crumble under the weight of her dishonesty was terrifying. She began to notice how different he was from anyone she had ever dated before. He was patient, never rushing her to share more than she was ready to, never judging the things she hesitated to say. He seemed to value presence over perfection, honesty over appearances. This was a man who lived in the moment, who cherished the small joys of life, and who treated others with a quiet respect that felt rare and precious. She admired that about him, and it only made her feel more conflicted about hiding the truth. How could someone so genuine appreciate her if she had built her connection on a foundation of secrecy? Despite her caution, their bond began to deepen. They went on walks through the countryside, shared picnics by the river, and spent evenings talking under the stars. Every moment together felt effortless, as if the world had slowed down just enough for them to exist in a bubble of shared understanding. She found herself laughing freely, sharing dreams she had never voiced to anyone, and feeling emotions she had long buried. But with every smile, every touch, the fear of exposure lingered, a quiet shadow that whispered she could not keep up the lie forever. The internal struggle grew stronger with time. She found herself avoiding certain topics, carefully steering conversations away from questions about her past or experiences that might hint at her real age. She felt the weight of her dishonesty pressing down on her heart. There were nights she lay awake, replaying every conversation, imagining the moment he might find out, and feeling both dread and guilt. It was exhausting, this constant balancing act between the desire for connection and the fear of rejection. And yet, despite the stress, she could not deny the joy she felt in his presence, the laughter, the ease, the quiet moments of understanding that made her heart feel alive. One afternoon, as they rode horses together along a quiet trail, the tension became almost unbearable. She loved being close to him, the steady rhythm of the horses beneath them, the wind brushing against their faces, the simplicity of the moment. But the longer they rode together, the more she felt the lie pressing on her, an invisible weight she could no longer ignore. She wanted to tell him to release the tension, but fear held her back. What if he no longer saw her the same way? What if the connection they had built crumbled in an instant? He noticed her hesitation, of course. Men like him who paid attention to small details could sense when something was wrong. "You seem quiet today," he said gently, glancing at her with concern. She forced a smile, trying to brush it off. "I'm fine," she replied, though her voice lacked conviction. He didn't push her, only nodded, allowing her space while still being present. That quiet patience was both comforting and frustrating, because it reminded her how much she wanted to be honest, but also how scared she was to take that step. Days passed and the emotional strain grew. She began to question herself more and more. Why had she lied in the first place? Was it really about age, or was it about fear of not being enough? She realized that the lie, once a shield, had become a barrier, not just to him, but to herself. Every moment of joy was tinged with anxiety, every laugh shadowed by the knowledge that she was not fully truthful. And yet the connection they shared was unlike anything she had experienced before. It was real, it was deep, and it was worth the risk of being vulnerable. She decided to test the waters, subtly hinting at the truth without fully revealing it. She spoke about life experiences in ways that might suggest a few more years than she had claimed, observing his reactions carefully. He listened, asked gentle questions, and responded with warmth and curiosity, never judgment. Each interaction was a lesson in courage, a small step toward the honesty she had long avoided. She realized that perhaps the fear she had carried for so long was larger than reality, that he might be more understanding than she had imagined. One evening, they shared a quiet dinner at a small, rustic restaurant. Candlelight flickered across their faces, and the atmosphere was intimate and unhurried. She felt a strange combination of exhilaration and dread as she tried to navigate the conversation. She laughed at his jokes, shared stories, and enjoyed the subtle closeness that had grown between them. But beneath the laughter was the ever-present anxiety about revealing the truth. Every time she thought about telling him, her heart raced, her palms grew sweaty, and her mind raced through every possible outcome, both good and bad. He, however, seemed completely unaware of her inner turmoil. He talked about his day, shared small observations about the world, and spoke with a calmness that made her feel both nervous and safe at the same time. There was no rush, no pressure, no judgment, only the quiet understanding that seemed to radiate from him. She realized, with a mixture of relief and awe, that his presence alone was teaching her a lesson in patience, trust, and the value of being seen for who she truly was. As the weeks passed, their bond continued to grow. They shared long walks through the fields, quiet mornings over coffee, and evenings under a sky full of stars. Each shared moment deepened her feelings, but the lie she carried about her age remained a constant, silent weight. She knew that sooner or later, the truth would have to come out. The thought of losing him terrified her, yet the idea of continuing to hide the truth was becoming unbearable. She realized that honesty was not just a moral obligation. It was a necessity if their connection was to survive and thrive. She began to prepare herself mentally for the moment of truth. She thought about how she would say it, how she would explain her fear, and how she could express the depth of her feelings despite the mistake she had made. She knew it would be difficult, that there might be shock, disappointment, or even anger. But she also knew that love built on honesty had a chance to grow stronger than love built on lies. Every shared laugh, every gentle touch, and every moment of understanding strengthened her resolve to be truthful. Meanwhile, she noticed subtle signs that he was growing closer to her as well. He would remember small details she had mentioned in passing, offer thoughtful gestures, and listen with genuine interest. His patience, kindness, and willingness to see her fully were becoming a mirror for the honesty she longed to show. She began to understand that vulnerability was not a weakness, but a bridge, a way to deepen connection, to invite trust, and to allow love to flourish in its most authentic form. One afternoon, as they sat on a quiet hill overlooking the town, she found herself on the verge of confession. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink, and the world seemed to hold its breath around them. She looked at him, at the calmness in his eyes, and realized that the moment had come. She could no longer carry the lie, no longer hide behind fear. She wanted him to see her fully, to know the truth, and to decide for himself whether their connection was worth continuing. Her hands trembled slightly as she began to speak, her voice soft but steady. She explained her fears, her insecurities, and the reasons behind her lie. She spoke of the years she had carried the secret, the guilt it had caused, and the desire for genuine connection that had brought her to him. She watched him carefully, searching for any hint of judgment or disappointment. His face, however, remained calm and attentive, a silent reassurance that he was listening and willing to understand. When she finished, there was a pause, long enough for her heart to pound in her chest, long enough for her mind to race through every possible outcome. And then he smiled, a slow, genuine smile that melted the tension she had carried for so long. He spoke gently, his words calm and reassuring, explaining that what mattered to him was not the number of years she had lived, but the moments they shared, the connection they had built, and the honesty she had finally shown. For the first time in a long while, she felt a wave of relief wash over her. The fear, the guilt, and the anxiety lifted, replaced by a quiet joy and a deep sense of peace. She realized that her courage to be honest had not only strengthened their bond, but had also opened a door to a love that was authentic, freeing, and deeply meaningful. The moment of truth had arrived. She had carried the secret of her age for so long, a quiet weight that had shaped her relationships, her choices, and her confidence. But now, standing beside him on a warm afternoon, with sunlight filtering gently through the trees, she felt a mixture of fear, relief, and anticipation. The connection between them had grown into something rare and precious, and she knew that honesty was no longer optional. If their bond was to survive and thrive, she had to show him her true self, completely and without reservation. Her heart raced as she spoke, carefully choosing her words, yet feeling that no words could fully convey the years of fear, insecurity, and longing she carried. She told him about the small lie she had told when they first met, how it had started as a harmless omission and gradually became a protective shield. She shared her anxieties about being judged, about not being seen as enough, and about the quiet loneliness that had accompanied her through the years. Each word felt heavy and light at the same time. Heavy because of the vulnerability she was exposing, light because finally she was letting go of a secret she had carried alone for so long. He listened quietly, his expression calm, thoughtful, and patient. There was no rush, no interruption, no judgment. He didn't flinch, frown, or look away. Instead, he gave her the gift of his full attention, allowing her to speak freely, to release the tension and fear she had been carrying. The more she spoke, the more she realized that his presence itself was soothing, a steady reassurance that honesty could be met with understanding rather than rejection. His gaze held warmth, curiosity, and a quiet strength that made her feel safe enough to be completely vulnerable. As she finished speaking, there was a brief pause, long enough for her to doubt herself again, long enough for fear to creep back into her mind. She braced for disappointment, judgment, or hurt, expecting at any moment that her honesty might undo everything they had shared. And then he smiled, a slow, gentle, and entirely genuine smile that seemed to melt away the years of anxiety she had carried. "I'm glad you told me," he said softly, his voice steady and calm. "What matters to me isn't how many years you've lived, but the moments we share, the connection we've built, and the honesty you just showed me." Relief washed over her in waves, mixing with joy, disbelief, and gratitude. For the first time in years, she felt truly seen, not for an image she had carefully crafted, but for the person she was, real, flawed, and beautiful in her own way. The tension that had accompanied every interaction, every conversation, every shared moment began to dissolve. She laughed softly, tears welling in her eyes, and felt the burden she had carried for so long finally lifting. The truth, she realized, had not driven him away, it had brought them closer. They spent the rest of the afternoon walking through the quiet trails near the edge of town. The sun was warm, the breeze gentle, and the world around them seemed to pause, allowing them to exist fully in the moment. He spoke about his own experiences, sharing moments of vulnerability from his past, the times he had made mistakes, and the lessons he had learned. She listened, amazed at how easy it was to connect with someone who valued honesty and presence above all else. For the first time, she felt the exhilarating freedom of being completely herself, without fear of judgment or rejection. As they walked, he explained a simple but profound truth he lived by: that love is measured by moments, not by years, numbers, or appearances. Life, he said, is fleeting, and the only thing that truly matters is the depth of connection shared between two people. The way she smiled, the way she laughed, the way she cared, these were the things that counted. Age, he explained, was nothing more than a number, a detail that did not define her worth, her beauty, or the love she was capable of giving and receiving. She listened, feeling a quiet awe and relief. The words resonated deeply, echoing in the corners of her heart that had long been closed off by fear and insecurity. The evening came gently, the sky painted with soft shades of pink and gold as the sun began to set. They found a quiet spot on a small hill overlooking the town, where the world seemed distant and still. Sitting together, their shoulders lightly touching, she felt a profound sense of peace. The fear that had been her constant companion was gone, replaced by trust, joy, and the promise of something real. She realized that the courage it took to reveal her truth had not only strengthened their bond, but had also transformed her own perception of love, life, and self-worth. They shared stories of their pasts, not as a measure of who they were, but as a way to understand the journeys that had led them to this moment. He spoke of challenges he had faced, lessons he had learned, and the people who had shaped him along the way. She shared memories of her own growth, the hardships that had taught her resilience, and the quiet victories that had given her strength. Each story built a deeper understanding between them, creating a foundation of trust and authenticity that felt unbreakable. There was laughter, of course. Many small moments of joy, like noticing a bird landing on a nearby branch or sharing a joke about a clumsy horse she had seen earlier, filled the space between them. These simple, fleeting moments held more meaning than grand gestures or elaborate displays ever could. She realized that love, in its truest form, thrived in the quiet, unassuming, and honest moments shared between two hearts willing to see and accept each other fully. As darkness slowly fell, the first stars began to appear in the sky. They lay back on the soft grass, side by side, watching the constellations emerge, feeling a connection that transcended words. She thought about the years she had spent hiding her true self, the anxieties that had shadowed her, and the walls she had built to protect her heart. And now, lying there with him, she understood that those walls were no longer necessary. She could be vulnerable, open, and fully herself, and it would be met with care, respect, and love. He turned to her and spoke quietly, reminding her that the best moments in life are often unexpected, unplanned, and fleeting. The magic of life, he said, was in embracing these moments fully, without hesitation, without fear, and without pretense. She felt the truth in his words resonate in her own heart. For the first time, she understood that love was not about perfection, appearances, or numbers. It was about presence, authenticity, and shared experiences that created lasting memories. Their relationship, she realized, was no longer defined by the lie she had once told. Instead, it was defined by honesty, trust, and the willingness to embrace each other fully, flaws and all. She felt a sense of liberation she had never known, as if a weight had been lifted from her soul. The fear that had once controlled her interactions, dictated her choices, and limited her joy was gone. In its place was a quiet confidence, a trust in the connection they had built, and an excitement for the moments yet to come. As they walked back toward town under the blanket of early night, she felt a quiet gratitude for the journey that had led her here. Every mistake, every lie, every moment of fear had taught her something valuable about herself and about love. And now, with honesty as their foundation, she felt ready to embrace the future with openness, courage, and a willingness to fully experience the joy and intimacy that came with genuine connection. That night back in her apartment, she reflected on the day with a mixture of awe and contentment. She thought about the strength it had taken to be honest, the courage it had required to reveal her truth, and the profound relief of being met with understanding and acceptance. For the first time in years, she felt completely seen, valued, and loved, not for an image she had crafted, but for the person she truly was. It was a feeling that went beyond excitement or infatuation. It was a deep, abiding sense of peace and joy that filled her heart to the brim. She knew that life would continue to bring challenges, uncertainties, and moments of doubt. But she also knew that love built on honesty, trust, and shared presence could withstand the tests of time. The lessons she had learned about courage, vulnerability, and the importance of living fully in the present would guide her in the days to come. And with him by her side, she felt ready to face the world, embrace the beauty of life, and cherish every moment, knowing that love was not measured by numbers, but by the depth of connection shared between two hearts willing to see and accept each other completely. After the moment of truth, life between them felt lighter, fuller, and more vibrant than it had ever been. The air seemed brighter, the colors richer, and even the simplest tasks felt infused with joy. She had spent years carrying fear and insecurity, carefully hiding a part of herself from the world, but now those burdens had been lifted. With him, honesty and authenticity were not just accepted, they were celebrated. Each day became a new opportunity to explore not just their love, but the beauty of the life they were creating together. Their mornings often began slowly, with quiet breakfasts and warm cups of coffee. They would sit by the window, sunlight spilling across the table, and talk about plans for the day, dreams they hoped to pursue, or just the little details of life that made them smile. There was no need for pretense, no need for carefully crafted words or hidden truths. They shared everything openly, the small victories, the occasional frustrations, and the simple joys that made life meaningful. In those moments, she realized that this was the kind of connection she had always longed for, one built on mutual respect, honesty, and presence. Weekends were often filled with adventures, both big and small. They explored the countryside together, taking long walks along quiet trails, discovering hidden spots near rivers, and stopping to watch sunsets in fields where the world seemed to stretch endlessly. He introduced her to the rhythms of life on a ranch, the satisfaction of working with animals, and the quiet pride that came from creating and caring for something meaningful. She, in turn, shared her own passions, taking him to the small cafes she loved, showing him the books and art that inspired her, and laughing over memories of her life that she had never shared with anyone before. Every shared activity became a moment to appreciate one another. Whether they were planting flowers in a small garden, cooking meals together, or simply sitting side by side in comfortable silence, she found herself amazed at how fulfilling these ordinary moments could be when shared with someone who truly understood her. She began to see life through a new lens, one where love was measured not in grand gestures or expensive gifts, but in the quiet, meaningful connections that filled each day with warmth and purpose. As their bond deepened, she noticed how much she had grown since meeting him. She had learned to embrace her age, her experiences, and her true self with pride rather than fear. The constant need to hide behind a carefully constructed image had vanished, replaced by a sense of confidence and self-assurance that radiated from within. She no longer worried about judgment or rejection, because she knew that the love they shared was rooted in authenticity, trust, and mutual respect. Every smile he offered, every gentle word, and every thoughtful gesture reinforced the truth that she was enough, exactly as she was. Evenings became a special time for them. They would often sit outside under the vast expanse of the sky, watching the stars emerge one by one. Sometimes they shared stories from their childhoods, speaking of dreams, fears, and the lessons life had taught them. Other times, they simply enjoyed the quiet, the gentle sound of the wind in the trees, and the presence of one another. These evenings were magical in their simplicity, reminding her that love did not need to be extravagant to be meaningful. It was in the shared moments, the small gestures, and the quiet understanding that their connection grew stronger every day. They also began creating little traditions together, small rituals that strengthened their bond. On some days, they would write notes to each other, expressing gratitude for the small things like a shared laugh or a helping hand. On others, they would take spontaneous drives to explore nearby towns, stopping wherever the scenery or the moment called to them. These traditions, simple yet meaningful, reminded her that love was not about grand gestures, but about the consistent, thoughtful actions that nurtured a relationship over time. Each act of kindness, each shared experience, added another layer to the deep, abiding connection they were building. Friends and neighbors began to notice a change in her as well. She carried herself with a newfound confidence, a quiet joy that seemed to emanate from within. Conversations were easier, laughter more frequent, and her overall demeanor reflected the peace she had found. People often commented on the happiness they saw in her, unaware of the journey she had taken to reach this place of contentment. She realized that the transformation was not just about the love she had found, but about the courage it had taken to be honest, vulnerable, and fully herself. Even challenges that came their way were met with patience and teamwork. There were days when life felt overwhelming, unexpected responsibilities, minor disagreements, and moments of doubt. But through it all, they faced each challenge together. They learned to communicate openly, to listen deeply, and to support one another without judgment. These challenges, rather than weakening their bond, strengthened it, teaching them resilience, empathy, and the importance of facing life hand in hand. She began to understand that love was not about perfection, but about commitment, understanding, and the willingness to grow together. Travel became another avenue through which their connection deepened. They explored new towns, ventured into the mountains, and wandered along quiet beaches. Each journey was an opportunity to discover not just the world but each other. They laughed at mistakes, celebrated small triumphs, and created memories that would last a lifetime. Every new experience became a shared story, a chapter in the life they were building together. She realized that love was not just about presence in the everyday. It was about embracing adventures, challenges, and discoveries side by side. She also noticed subtle ways in which he influenced her perspective on life. His ability to see beauty in simplicity, to appreciate the moment, and to prioritize genuine connections inspired her to slow down, reflect, and savor each day. She began to take joy in the little things, the warmth of morning sunlight, the scent of blooming flowers, and the laughter of people around her. Life became richer, fuller, and more meaningful because she was learning to live fully in the present, guided by the wisdom he shared and the love they nurtured together. Over time, their love began to extend beyond just their personal connection. They became partners in a shared vision of life, supporting each other's goals, ambitions, and passions. He encouraged her in her work, celebrated her successes, and offered guidance when she faced challenges. She, in turn, shared her insights, helped him in small ways, and stood by his side through difficulties. Their relationship became a partnership in every sense of the word, built on trust, mutual respect, and the unwavering support of two hearts committed to each other. Family gatherings, once a source of mild anxiety, became moments of joy. She introduced him to her relatives and close friends, confident that his genuine nature and authenticity would shine through. He fit seamlessly into her world, his kindness, humility, and warmth endearing him to those around her. The acceptance she felt from both him and her loved ones reinforced her sense of belonging and security. She realized that love was not just about the two of them. It was about building a community of support, understanding, and shared joy. One day, while sitting together by a quiet riverbank, she reflected on the journey that had brought them here. She thought about the years of fear, the secrets she had carried, and the doubts that had plagued her heart. And yet, she realized that every step, every challenge, and every moment of vulnerability had led her to this place of profound happiness. The love she shared with him was not just a fleeting romance. It was a life-changing connection that had transformed her perspective, healed old wounds, and opened her heart in ways she never thought possible. He noticed her quiet reflection and reached for her hand, a simple gesture that conveyed more than words ever could. They sat together in silence for a while, feeling the warmth of each other's presence, the gentle rhythm of the river, and the soft glow of the sun as it began its descent. In that quiet moment, she understood a truth she had always longed to accept. Love was not about years, appearances, or perfection. It was about moments fully lived, hearts fully open, and a willingness to embrace each other as they were, flaws and all. As the seasons changed, their love continued to grow stronger. They celebrated small milestones, shared quiet victories, and supported each other through life's inevitable challenges. Each day was an opportunity to deepen their connection, to create memories, and to nurture the trust and understanding that had become the foundation of their relationship. She felt a sense of gratitude for every moment, knowing that the journey they had taken together, marked by honesty, courage, and mutual respect, had created a love that was both enduring and transformative. Through it all, she never forgot the lesson he had taught her on that first day, that love counts only the moments shared, not the years counted. She embraced this wisdom fully, savoring every laugh, every conversation, every adventure, and every quiet evening spent together. Life had given her a gift far greater than she had imagined, a love that was authentic, nurturing, and deeply fulfilling. She realized that the fears she had once carried were not barriers, but stepping stones that had led her to this place of joy, connection, and profound happiness. As they continued their journey together, she found herself living more fully, loving more openly, and appreciating the beauty of life in ways she never had before. Each day became an opportunity to create memories, to deepen their bond, and to celebrate the simple, meaningful moments that made life extraordinary. She understood now that true love was not about numbers, appearances, or societal expectations. It was about connection, honesty, and the courage to embrace life together, moment by moment. And so, their days were filled with laughter, warmth, and shared experiences. The quiet joy of being together, the strength of their bond, and the depth of their understanding created a love that was both timeless and profoundly human. She had found not only a partner, but also a teacher, a guide, and a companion who showed her the beauty of living fully in the present. Through their shared journey, she discovered that love was not just about finding someone. It was about finding oneself in the reflection of another heart and cherishing every precious moment that life offered.